You're live.
Okay, we're going to call the Finance Committee meeting of the Council Bluffs School Board to order. Let's go around the table here. I'm going to start with Gail.
Gail Fleming, Assistant Administrator.
Bob Reinhardt, Director of Business Administration. Mike Garwood, School Director.
Jerry Grubb, School Director.
Joe Messina, Council Rock Educators Association. Kevin Carpuck, Council Rock.
Ed Tate, School Director.
Robert Frazier, Superintendent. Matt Pedersen, IT Director.
Mark Bialik, School Board. Kevin, how did you identify yourself?
You said Council Rock.
Oh, Council Rock. Kevin Carpuck with Cornerstone, ex of Council Rock. Oh, wow.
You want to know myself as well? Name it.
Brett Stuber, parent of students. and I live in Council. I moved here just so we could go to this school. Steve Homerton, Mr. Messina.
What's your name? Did you say Zach?
Zach.
Well,
And Denise Brooks and Joe Hidalgo just walked in the room. That's okay. Okay, first thing on the agenda is the investment update.
Yes. Discussion items. We have, first thing we're going to have is Cornerstone come in and talk about what's going on in the investment world, and also an opportunity for another investment alternative for our short-term money, and then also an update on the contract.
Absolutely, thank you. And if anybody's looked at a TV the past couple of days, let me just say that this will be one of the few happy meetings we have this quarter, because obviously the stock market's been down and interest rates have been moving up, which for typical bond investors isn't a good thing. When interest rates move up, you typically lose principal in your bond. But the district here, because rates are moving up the way they are, is benefiting quite a bit from these higher rates without much volatility at all. So and we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, but to give you an idea of, you know, where we were at when we first were retained and where rates are now, you know, we were talking about 0.5% a year was a good rate back then. And now we're talking about 2.25%, you know, with the likelihood that the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates another 4, 5, 6 times over the coming years. So from the asset side, that's going to create more income. And looking back in time, having fixed the debt before this interest rate increase, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and I'll take all the credit. I won't give Bob any for having done anything there. But you know, times have changed, and we're still talking about 2.25%, 2.5%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're talking about the types of cash holdings we have here, it turns into real money. So if you look at page 2 of the presentation with the Treasury yield curve, this is a little bit dated at this point, but you can see the blue line is at the beginning of this year, the tan line was at the end of the fiscal year, and then the green line is through late August. Well, since then, rates have gone up even more. Again, and a lot of that happened within the past week here, where, you know, just to give you an idea of where the 2-year bond is. So 2 years is kind of the max exposure we have in bonds in this portfolio. Well, we began the year at 1.89%. And as of the close of today, that was all the way up to 2.85% for a 2-year bond. So you've seen a 100 basis point move in rates. And again, this is a good thing for the district. It's you know, as short-term fixed income investors, it's really been a positive. We do not foresee, you know, the Fed's going to continue raising rates, but we think this recent top is a little bit overblown, and you can even see what happened in longer rates moved up very quickly, scared stock investors, and they've come down a little bit. So, you know, it's all positive from your point of view at this meeting, but if you look at your investment account, it may not be as positive
You mean your personal?
Yeah, I'm sorry, your personal investment. To go to page 3, and here, and these again are peer groups for different time periods, and the different colors and letters match with the different investments. We have Liquidity, TD, FMBN, and Wellington Trust. And year to date, so we're looking at this calendar year to date through the end of June, these returns were anywhere between, 0.2 and 0.7. Just since the end of the quarter, and we're a little bit too close to the end of the third quarter for us to have all of this updated. We'll send that down shortly, but we're looking at probably 1.5% returns this year, ramping up to 2+ % returns going forward.
If you remember in our budget process, one of the last moves we made was to increase our investment earnings. I made a quick call. That's how we got the $600,000 into the debt service area. That was one of the moves we made. We increased it even higher. Kevin gave me the go ahead.
And even then, we think that number is still conservative based on what we see the Fed doing. I won't spend a lot of time on the next couple pages, but again, it's safety, liquidity, yield. And when we look at page 4, the Wellington Trust investment summary, we're looking at a breakdown of the coupons, how much interest each bond pays, and we're looking at maturities. And you can see, like I mentioned, there's about $1 million out in 2021, but for the most part, it's within 2 years, which is why I really aimed at that. Here it says, as of the end of the quarter, Wellington Trust had about $20,500,000. They now have over $30 million because we have put $10 million, which won't be needed until the end of the fiscal year, to work with them to get more income. Page 5, I didn't realize how hard it was to read, but it's a list of the investments inside the Wellington Trust account, and all of these are backed by the federal government and all are compliant with the rules that we live under Act 10. Page 6, these are the Pliget underlying holdings, and they update them every 6 months or so. And you can see, again, these are all pretty high quality. The one comment I would make is about 1/3 of the portfolio is in federal home loan banks, which is not an explicit guarantee by the federal government. It's an implicit guarantee, meaning if something bad happens at the federal home loan bank, it would likely be backed by the government, but the government doesn't have a full guarantee on it. TD, page 7, we're still, we're comfortable with this collateral as long as the economy keeps moving forward. Because again, a lot of this is credit card debt. It's short term, it's floating, it moves up with interest rates, but we don't want too much exposure. This TD, any bank account, is the only holding we would have that is not in a bankruptcy remote account, meaning if TD went under, we would, first hit FDIC, but once we were over those limits, we would be relying on this collateral. We don't think TD is going under, and we're not concerned here, but we also don't want to have $100 million in TD for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't want to be in a position to have to figure out whether anybody wants the Brazos Higher Education Authority floating rate notes, but also because their yield right now is about 1.7, where we can get 2% plus elsewhere in what we consider safer investments.
How much do we have in TD right now? Is that 3.3 million?
No.
No,
3.3 billion.
Yeah, that's the total. That's their total for all
public funds.
in all Pennsylvania public funds. What was that count? I'm sorry.
We have 92 million.
Right. Yeah, we have 92 million, and depending on this next portion of the conversation, part of that can be, part of that will go elsewhere. But even depending on this conversation, we still will be looking at those more bulleted payments to get over to Wellington Trust, because we don't need 92 million sitting at TD right now, especially if we're giving up some yield. So that leads us to the FICA product due diligence. And for those of you who have been around finance for a little while, public finance in particular, when interest rates were actually higher, there was a product, and it still exists, it's left of practice, called feeders, which basically said, we're going to pool a bunch of money and then farm it out to underlying banks to be under the FDIC limit. So you would say, you can have the money for 6 months, and the manager would go out at as many banks as they needed and buy 6-month CDs to keep it under the FDIC.
Each one, 249,000.
Yep. And so FICA is very similar, except instead of tying up the money, this is a daily liquidity. What they're doing is going out to banks and saying, we will give you a deposit. What rate will you give us? So
just so everyone knows, FICA isn't what you think it is. FICA is the name of a product or an investment company that's managing an investment product. FICA isn't what everyone's thinking of.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the federally insured cash account is what FICA.
Can I ask you a question? So you're referring to the page numbers, and we don't have the copies for everybody tonight. But Bob, did you email this out to the board already?
No.
Can we do that?
Right now?
No, not right now, but when we're done, I think, so if anybody wants to.
Yeah, this will be put on board docs, and it'll be put on the website too.
Okay.
Yeah, put the link in the YouTube. You're done.
Yeah.
Because it keeps referring to the page numbers.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were from Italian. That's okay.
And so on this page where you're looking at, this is page 9, you're looking at the Treasury yield curve, and what you can see, and this continues, that yields have been moving up, and what you want when yields are moving up is you want a really responsive cash vehicle, meaning you want to capture all the moves up. If we thought that the Federal Reserve was going to lower rates, we would want something not responsive. We would want to buy longer type bonds to lock in a higher coupon. Well, that isn't on, that's almost no chance in the next couple of years that the Fed would actually start lowering rates. So part of the issue is that TD will be responsive and move rates up, but it's more of a chase them down and negotiate them up. Whereas if we put money into this product, it's similar to Pliget in that rates will move up as the market moves up. And I think the long and short of it is on next page where we talk about our kind of approved utilized products, and we don't mention First National Bank of Newtown just because that's a kind of cash flow account. But Cornerstone's recommendation is to add FICA as an approved product and not necessarily take it to the max. So FICA, you can put up to $25 million in this program and get the current yield, and it'll all be FDIC approved. But certainly taking some portion of the TD money and putting it into FICA, right now would add about 0.35% per year in yield, which we think is a positive, and it further diversifies some of the risks that we have, which again aren't great, but it's silly if I can get some level of better protection and a better yield. It makes a lot of sense to us.
So Kevin, can I ask a question? So where would that money come from? TD?
That money would come from TD.
Now, this is a competing product with TD Bank. It's a competing product with Pliget. And when you see this product against them recently, there's always been a spread favoring the FICA product, correct?
Yes. Certainly against TD. Pliget, it's a smaller spread, but there's still been a positive carry by 10, 12 basis points.
What was the number you said? Was it 0.3? Was that FICA was better?
0.35%.
So, but let me clarify this in my mind. So TD, obviously we don't expect TD to face bankruptcy or go under, but if that should happen, we're subject to the holdings that we have in that portfolio and the collateral behind it. A lot of it is consumer debt, right?
Right.
In the case of this, we have a portfolio of X number of banks where we have deposits up to 250,000.
Right. Oh, they're always kept below 200.
Up to 250,000. And then, so if something, we would have to have a wholesale default of the 100 and whatever banks that have to carry the same amount of risk. Am I
correct
saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for that to be a plausible event, because there's also extra due diligence that Stonecastle's the manager of the FICA product, and I should have led with that, but the Stonecastle doesn't just rely on the FDIC insurance. They actually look through at the banks, and if they're too levered or there's something about their balance sheet they don't like, they won't include them in their network. So that, you know, for 100 solvent banks to simultaneously go under, there are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of bad things happening. And, you know, I wouldn't even try to guess what would be happening with that consumer debt collateral if that happened.
So let me ask this. So Stonecastle obviously charges a fee to be the manager of this portfolio.
Right.
Is it a spread that they have, or is it a flat fee? How does it?
So it's a basis point fee. So basically it's 35 basis points. The quote, when I say 2.05 or 2.15 is the rate that is net of their management. So there's no extra fee on top of there. But
Is it tiered?
Tiered? No, not inside. This program doesn't have a tier. And when we discussed with them you know, how much would we have to do to get outside of this program, you know, the numbers were actually much larger than we expected in the $250 to $300 million range. Because the economies of scale for them are keeping it within this network, you know, and so it isn't tiered, but that doesn't mean over time we can't negotiate.
So the net 35 basis points that is better than TD, right, is net of the 35 basis points fee.
Correct. Yep, and I think if we, so I think if we stay on this page for a second, you know, we'll look at how the rates have reacted to increases in general market rates, and that's been positive. But I think a key here, and if you look at Pliget I, there are restrictions to how many times you can get at commodity. Here, it's daily liquidity. So if we call them and say, we want $5 million back at TD to make a payment, the next day there will be a wire, no fee, no withdrawal fee or anything, but there will be a wire back in the account. So again, we're not looking at this as a checking account. That's TD, that's where they play. But it is highly liquid and gives us another avenue where we have, we have the ability to tap into relatively quickly. Not that we assume we will, that everything's pretty well laid out, but you never want to be less liquid than you need to be.
So I don't want to get the weeds too much about it, but do they maintain cash position somewhere so they can just?
These are deposits with the underlying bank.
Directly with the underlying banks, and they can move that fast to have next day liquidity. So they're not custody. They're custodied at the individual bank.
Right. So the statement will come under the U.S. bank. They're the kind of third-party administrator, but all the money is at the underlying banks. Just like you could go to Bank of America, if that's your bank, and take money out today. Mm-hmm. They can do the same thing. These are not tied up. They're not repos. They're not in anything. So basically, if you get to them before 3 p.m., Stonecastle will instruct U.S. Bank to go and get whatever cash is needed. And then it does come back to U.S. Bank in order to send the wire.
Yeah, but I mean, so to the point, I'm not stupid, but you're right. If I go to my own bank and I say I need $150,000, they do ask you to give a couple of days notice
Right.
before you do that. Because it just doesn't come. So I mean, at some level there, that may just be physically moving things, but that, you know, but.
Pretty extreme. Next day liquidity is.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out how you mechanically go about, yes.
Well, so you're not, if we pull $5 million out, for example,
right.
We're not pulling $5 million from one place.
Right.
We're pulling 50 grand or something from 100. Yeah. So, I mean, it's part of, and also to be part of the network, right? You need to agree to this, and so. But again,
is there a max on the daily withdrawal? There must be.
I mean, if we put 25 million in, and I called tomorrow and asked for 25 million, we probably wouldn't be allowed to be there anymore. But they have no stated maximum. But this is also why the one-day liquidity, we're not pitching. If we believe that in every case it was one-day liquidity, we would be looking to use it more as a checking account.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Right. But that's their stated contractual agreement. In reality, you know, if bad things are happening, we have to assume 3 to 5 days.
Well, let's not to be simplistic about it. You know, It's a Wonderful Life movie. You know, the day that everybody showed up at the bank and needed money, it wasn't there. You know, and it couldn't be. And while I understand that, you know, it was in your house, as they said in the movie, yeah, I get that. There's some element. You know, it's not up. If it's not, it's not. It's just, and it's not.
Right.
Okay. So okay.
But
everybody shows up and needs 50 million tomorrow. They got a problem.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. Now, that being said, on a regular old day where it's just time to move $5 million back to TD, they will make sure that happens.
And what are they carrying in this account? And what's under management at any one time? How much have they got?
$12 billion.
Yeah, they have 12 billion.
Yeah, so 50 million is it's a pimple. It's, yeah.
Right, and those are, that 12 billion is diversified. It isn't one client has 6 billion of the 12.
I gotcha.
So,
Kevin, can I ask a follow-up question? You mentioned U.S. Bank, and I understand U.S. Bank's not the custodian of the assets, but do we run into any risks? Because we were hitting up against the insurance cap with Pliget with U.S. Bank. Does that play in at all with this or no?
So that's why we may not want to go all the way to the 25, but 10, it still makes sense. We don't see, so the difference here is there's got to be a real concerted 3 or 4 parties from different organizations who would be able to get the money out of the underlying bank to U.S. Bank and then out of U.S. Bank into any account that isn't the one that is the official TD. And that would require, so someone at U.S. Bank would say to someone at Stone Castle, hey, I'm going to call money back and take it. Don't flag anything. Well, there's that T+1. We get a notification, Gail will get a notification saying there's money coming out. But before that, we would get a notification saying someone changed your wire instructions. And, you know, there's always a callback. So maybe we don't go up to 25 right out of the chute. Maybe we stay in the 10.
Well, I don't know if I'm understanding, but or if it's just not answering my question, but is U.S. Bank kind of just a transfer agent of the money flow? So if we're at risk of, my concern is that one of the concerns we have is having too much money past an insurance level with one custodian. U.S. Bank is at 25 million, right? And we're already at or above that with Pliget, I believe, right? So if I understand it right, we would have to kind of catch that cash in transit, have U.S. Bank fail on that day that that it's transitioning to be at risk. Am I saying that right?
If we wire after 3 p.m., it will spend a night at U.S. Bank.
Okay.
And I think we covered that, we had that same discussion at the table with there was the transactional moment, if you will, that.
Well, I think it's a little different with Pliget, because I think they're the custodian for Pliget, so that money sits there, where individual banks are the custodian for this 25 million, 10 million, 25.
Yeah, but, you know, unless, I hear that, but regardless of the 20, you know, if we call it 25 million, at some point, whether it's a U.S. bank or we move to someone, it's gotta be somewhere for us to transact it, to put it to the fund. Unless it's going to the federal government, someone's holding 25 million in an account.
Right, but what we had before was 125.
Oh, I agree.
One institution with 25 million.
And I remember too, U.S. Bank had some limit, like $1.9 billion in, but somebody had, there was some big number for.
It was 25 million.
There was a secondary line of insurance, not just FDIC, there was a secondary.
That's, yeah, the 25 million is not FDIC.
Right.
That's the additional aggregate.
But there was somebody, they had laid off some insurance, whether it was to Lloyd's or Globe or something. There was something that.
1.9 billion.
Not maybe that's bigger, but somebody.
So Wellington Trust as the custodian has a lot more than 25 million.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember the number, but it isn't 2 billion. That would be.
All right, so as our consultant who is on the hook for the fiduciary responsibility, you're comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with it.
You have 1.9 billion of insurance.
I have
custody and ask.
Yeah, so, right, and yes, we are comfortable with it, and we think it's and we're talking about 25, just like the program doesn't go above 250, we're not going, we're probably talking 24, right? Because if I go above 25, that rate drops on the marginal dollars. So that is our recommendation. If we're comfortable with it, we have various clients in it, including my CEO and president, who would inflict a lot more pain than anybody else if this was a bad, you know, if this hadn't been fully vetted.
So you're recommending that we add FICA and manage special expenses, and you're not recommending a specific amount?
No, so this, in my mind, would be just like the board doesn't dictate the filing scale necessarily where how much we go to Wellington. We're asking for it to be approved as an option.
Got it.
If that, I think that's
Yep.
the proper procedural.
And I will tell you, I'm going to be working with Rob Cox to make sure he's happy with the way we have this approved by the board. So if there's any issues with it before next Thursday, you may not see it on next Thursday's agenda. We have to do different things. There's another item coming up the same way with it, but it'll be on the agenda.
Thanks.
So same safety, as dollars and cents, an additional 35 basis points or 0.35%. Real quick, what's the math on that? Annually, if you know.
I should know. 90,000, not 25. Yeah. 90. So quickly, what I wanted to cover was the ideas of alpha versus beta, and that sounds a lot nerdier and stuff to me than it needs to be. Beta is, in layman's terms, if the market goes up and you go up the same as the market, you shouldn't really take a lot of credit. So as interest rates have gone up from 0.4 to 2 and change, you know, I would love to take the credit for 2% increase. That isn't true. The market has added some of that, but there also has been alpha, which is what value is Cornerstone adding to this relationship above what you could have gotten if you had never met us. And, you know.
Let me do a little before this. We're getting into talking about the contract and the worth of Cornerstone with the district. Mark and I met with Kevin earlier, and Mark said he'd like to see what Cornerstone has brought to the table to, you know, what will we have earned and what are we earning now because Cornerstone's here. And that's why Kevin's getting into this discussion right now. It isn't because Kevin really wants to do it, or he would do it, but it's really been requested. Is that a better?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I don't mind saying how great I am, but yes, it was teed up. But a couple things that we want to point out that aren't captured in any of the following numbers that that we are serving as outside fiduciary for the district and for the board, right? That isn't quantifiable on how much extra income the district is. You know, the investment policy guidelines have really been, I think, they took a quantum leap from where they were before to something much safer and clearer on who can do what, where, and even disallowing some legal investments for prudent reasons. You know, the manager search and selection and ongoing monitoring, we're in contact with these folks all the time, making sure that they're doing their jobs. But I think there's also going to be, over time, as there's turnover on the staff and board level, a certain amount of institutional knowledge that we will bring to the table and help smooth out any transition from this perspective. But when you get down to it, you know, over when we were first retained, you know, our first step was to call TD before we did anything, right? We were talking about investment policy statements, and there was, by those negotiations, created about $350,000 of excess earnings in 2016 and 2017. Since then, you know, they have been fairly proactive, not automatically proactive in raising rates as rates have come up. So that really, a lot of that is how we help kind of move the beta. We got the district paid what it should have been getting paid from the get-go. But then you look at the alpha, and this is something that would not have likely been done without this addition of an outside expert. And that's about $250,000 of extra returns per year by introducing Wellington Trust into the portfolio. So we've been able to go a little bit longer in our investment, earn about $250,000 a year over what we would have gotten under the kind of prior setup. And then and then here I actually understated it a little bit. You know, we're going to continue looking at adding alpha by not only finding FICA type products, but also making sure that we're diversifying appropriately. And here, you know, we kind of lowballed it and said 40 to 65,000 per year in the future by having that responsive investment program at FICA. And there are going to be times, just so everybody knows, different banks and different products are out in the market at different times where they want to gather. So banks will go through a phase where they want to gather district or municipal assets. There are other times where they don't want them. So we're talking to Santander, we're talking to a couple other folks who have some interesting offers on the table. But we're out there talking and you know, are they offering enough extra yield for the same level of liquidity or safety, or are they offering greater safety for the same yield? Those are the types of conversations that I know the staff is too busy to have. They're trying to run the finances of a district here, but we're having these conversations, and right now we're not looking to go down that path, but it's something to, you know, we're out in the market talking to folks. So, you know, with that, I think it's a fairly compelling, you know, time from where we started. And if I can just pivot right into kind of the contract portion of it, when we originally quoted this piece of business, we quoted a $50,000 a year retainer. With where interest rates were, that was just too big a piece of the total income per year, and we guaranteed that. And so when Bob called to negotiate, we said, okay, we'll for 2 years have this almost as a loss leader in terms of we wanted the relationship, we wanted to work with the district with the idea that after year 3 we would revisit it. So our request is to go back from that 25,000, which was a 2-year per year for years 1 and 2 level, 25,000 a year, to 50,000 a year, which was the original concept. and certainly the income coming off the portfolio has been, you know, significantly, you know, we're looking at 3 to 4 times more now than we did back then. And really, it's you know, I think it's a good, fair level for where the district's at, for the complexity of the solution. And given the results, I hope everybody's happy with it and finds their way to be okay with it.
I believe when Cornerstone came on, I think our budget was probably about $300,000 for investment earnings. Today, it's at 1.2 million. We're going to exceed that this year. It could be up to 2 million, hearing where interest rates are. So it far exceeds where we've been. Now, Kevin has talked about what the market has done to increase our interest rates, but also the opportunities we have. And the TD Bank one, where Kevin went to them and said, your portfolio that is used as collateral is performing at 1.8% or something like that, and you're giving the district 20 basis points, you can't do that. And if not, if you don't change it, we're going to move. They jumped it up, I think, to over 100 basis points right away. So that was a huge win for us because Kevin was able to show them that. I wasn't able to do that when it happened. So that's just one example. Just another example coming today, again, looking at smaller spreads between what we're doing now, but it's another option that we can use to invest. So I'm in support of it, and I think it would be a fair measure. You may say, well, we don't see Kevin and his group that often. They're behind the scenes seeing what's going on and evaluating things, so I don't think we should see them. He would come every quarter and meet and talk to us for 2 hours if we wanted to listen to him for 2 hours. But I think there's a faith.
That's how much of a nerd I am. But,
but I think there's a faith in what has happened, and for me, I believe it's an appropriate request.
Is there a term to the contract time-wise?
Our contract is specifically written evergreen from your perspective. It's, you know, prudent at some point to go back out and look.
Well, it's written as evergreen, which for those people playing along at home is just means it renews without over renewals. But we have a 30-day. I've dealt with Rob Cox for many years. We have a 30-day out, so we can peg them for convenience at our convenience.
Yeah, and no, not annually.
No, 30 days at our convenience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it would be unlikely that, you know, we wouldn't hold you to the 30 days if it got to that point, but it would be unlikely that it would make sense to separate quicker until data and different things were.
No, at that point, look, at that point, we would be working towards a replacement and professional courtesies amongst people to move the money to full plan.
So this is something that we require action at the next board meeting?
Yes.
And this will be something drafted by Rob?
Yes.
Okay. So I was going to ask, does anyone have any questions or objections before we move forward?
No, just raise his hand. I thought he had a question.
Nobody? Okay. Good.
Well, I think the performance is really laudable, and I think this is a really smart move to hire them in the first place. I'm fully supportive. Mark, that's right.
Out of curiosity, now you part of your rationale was that you hope to be able to bring more people into the fold. How are you doing?
In bringing more, we have, our cash management has been growing, not as much on the side, because these economies of scale, you know, if you're talking about a $10 million kind of fund balance and act,
Right.
it's really a lot tougher, but we do have several counties who are, you know, who have the contract in legal right now, but we all know how lawyers can be, so.
And municipalities.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we're still looking to grow it now with rates higher. You know, we think there's more opportunity.
Good job, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say hi, Mom. It's a TV.
This next section is my review of last year's financials again. and I'm gonna show you some changes that were made, since the last time we spoke about it. I'm gonna go over this quickly, but I'm gonna spend some time on the salary and benefit area. As you'll see, our budget for revenues and expenditures, $230 million, $233 million, and we expect it to have a use of fund balance, meaning revenues are less than expenditures by $4.2 million. The actual came in, we'll see our revenues came in about $3.2 million, or 1.42% higher than what the budget was. Expenditures came in 0.54% lower than the budget is. So therefore, instead of having the fund balance go down, our fund balance went up by about $305,000. We agreed, and we've already done that, we've moved $3 million of it from the general fund to the capital reserve fund for use for capital projects for next summer. Therefore, the net result is that our fund balance is going down about $2.7 million. Beginning fund balance was $24 million. Ending fund balance is now $21.4 million. I'm still saying these are unaudited, but I believe Gail, as of today, the auditors have an agreement with our numbers, so I believe these are going to be our final numbers for sure. What changed in September? Our revenue that I showed in September went up $250 because access money increased by $250. It's really insignificant. Expenditures went up $30,070. The intermediate unit reconciliation, I was off by $18,356, and we had additional propane fuel bill for our buses for $11,700. So that reconciles to the last time you saw this. This is all the changes that were made. Revenues, this is all the major increases in revenue. Again, the highest one is the current real estate taxes, and positive variance of $1.5 million. That seems like a lot, but as you know, we basically fund the district with real estate taxes. So the budget was $144 million, so it was off by 1.5%. As I say to you every year, this is the area you don't want to mess with. You don't start playing with numbers and collection rates and things like that, because it very easily turn to a negative 1%, and you can see what that's going to do to your budget if that happens. Earned income taxes, as you've seen it before, I didn't go with the other chart, but our earned income taxes last year went up to $18.3 million. They have come down a little bit, but they're still over our budgeted estimate. And I know that our budget, as long as our earned income taxes is going up, our budget is lagging behind. We don't want to try to catch up in 1 year and find it drop again. And back in 2009, 10, if you remember all those years, our earned income tax did drop during the recession. So, although that's 8.16%, it would have been more like 12% if we even came up with last year. Last year was 18.3 million. Plan con reimbursement, that's this unusual spikes in plan con. Understand that the middle schools, plan con moratorium is done, so as we pay off the older school finances, this number is going to drop. So that's another number I wouldn't play with, even though we've seen revenue a little higher. State retirement, that is the half share of the retirement system payments we make. So we spent more in salaries, so our revenues came in higher also. That's really a function of how much salary you pay. We'll talk about that some more. Basic debt subsidy came in a little higher than what I had budgeted. As you know, that we're putting the budget together when we finalize our budget before the state even approves their budget. So I'm kind of flying blind based on that until the state passes their budget. Special ed subsidy, that is a calculation that isn't as easy because we do get extra money for the exceptionally costing children and things like that. So we really don't know that until later on. State tuition reimbursement, every year that changes depending on what's going on and where our kids are. So that is where our kids are being educated. This is one that I'm a little concerned with, is our delinquent tax collections I did bring that up a little last year, and I probably brought it up too high. And then some real estate tax is another one that, it was growing quickly, and then this year settled down a little. That's the reference. Okay, salary and benefits, as you see, this is our budget, 233 million, you'll see up to 233 million, 1.8 million is, 108 million is salaries. We overextended that by 1.5 million. I spent a lot of time looking at that because this is the first time I think we've overspent salaries, and I have some explanations for you on that. And you can look at all the healthcare, and all the other employee benefits. So of our total budget, 177 million is budgeted, 233 million for salaries and benefits, 178 million was spent. So we overspent salaries and benefits by 0.87%. Again, it's not a big percentage, but it worries me that we're overspending a large part of our budget. Fortunately, no, go back. Fortunately, our 309, if more of the discretionary spending, was underexpended by $2.8 million. So that benefited us a lot. The total expenditures were off by 0.54%. And you know the way I feel about that. We are very, very tight. And I'm petrified one day it's going to turn the other way, and that could cause us a problem. Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is what I'm going to try to explain. I spent a lot of time on this, and understand that preparing this and trying to identify it, I identified it based on the way I budget the salaries. So each contract, administration, I budget for it. I have a detailed list of individuals and what they're scheduled to be paid. The CREA do the same thing. That 81 million has a person's name next to it, or a vacant position, or something like that, and that's good. So I know how I got the $81.2 million. Then the column movement is the people that started one column one year, and we don't know where they're going to move, but they move across the columns and they make more money as they do. They get education and they move over. So what I always do each year is I take another $500,000 out of my other category. I put that in there to say, I don't know who's going to move in CREA, but someone's going to move. So the combination of the 81.2 and the 500,000 is really what I would expect our CREA budget to be. What I did is I took every payroll transaction, probably one of the biggest spreadsheets you'll see, and I married it up with people and what bargaining unit they are. I determined if it was regular salary or if it was paid for a different purpose, EDRPP and all that. And I broke it up and I found that we actually spent $83 million on CREA salary. Understand, there are people on the list that I thought they were going to be working, but maybe they retired and went out on leave and things like that. So there's a zero in action next to them. There are people that were here at portions of the year, had to go on leave, so they have a very smaller portion. And then there are people that are on the list that weren't on the budget because they're here replacing people. So there's all kinds of types of things going on like this. There could be teachers on leave that are getting paid sick time because they have sick time, while another person's being paid. So there's overlapping things. There's all kinds of things happening. What I did is I married basically these two numbers up, and I determined what went on. Why did we overexpend the $1.3 million?
One question. You mentioned it in passing. EDRPP is neither specified for CREA nor CRESPA. Does the payment, the actual payment to CREA, so is that payments to CREA members inclusive if a single member receives EDRPP? Is that included in there as well?
That's under other.
So that's...
There's a pay code that tells me if it's a salary or if it's paid for other reasons. Okay. And I exclude that for this purpose.
I gotcha. So even if you're a CREA member, you're getting paid EDRPP and showing up in the other category?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Overtime's there's all kinds of different things in there. Substitutes are there, and that might be one of the reasons why this was overexpended, because this is the first year we had the contract with subs, Remember, I moved money out of salaries into contracted subs to pay contracted subs. Well, I'm not sure that was exactly correct either, but I'm going to get into all the other stuff. Now, administration, I was off by 1.69%. There is the ability for administrators to get vacation days, unused vacation days, and things like that. And there's different type of variables in there that I can tell you that's probably why that's off. Korea, we're going to get into that. PRESPA, we're off by a little, but people are coming and going. And if you know that the PRESPA group, especially the instructional assistants and things like that, they're more, they're moving in and out and things like that, so there's a lot of changes to that. But again, that's only off by 0.72%. So as we look at this, this is where we are, this is what we overspending. Go ahead, Matt. The accompanying explanation provides details of the negative budget to actual variances in the CREA salary. This was based on a detailed analysis of 2017 budget calculations and actual payroll transactions. I must emphasize the first two items on the are incorrect budget calculations. The actual payroll payments are correct. This has nothing to do with people not getting paid correctly or something like that. This is about calculations within the accounting estimate as I prepare the budget. And I'm going to pass this budget schedule out to illustrate some of the issues that I've had. If you remember, the last year of our contract, teacher's contract, individuals did not get their step movement until midway through the contract. So 12 payments that are paid at one salary amount, the next payments that are paid at another salary amount. Okay? You will see here that I say calculations of blending of top step. Number of calculations, 318. Per item cost, $805. I'm going to illustrate that here. If you look, the schedule to your far left is the first 12 payments. Okay? The schedule to your right is the second payment. I'm going to be talking about step 13 and 14, and 13 and 14 if you will see there. And I'm taking the P1 schedule right now to just look at that. The way I blended the step, the bottom step, the first half of the year in yellow, you'll see that I have 111,802. You see that? And then I took, for the second half of the year, step 14, 113,998. You see that? Because the way I was looking at it is everybody that's going to be in the step 14 was on the previous step. You got that? So for half of the year, they got 111,802. And the other half of the year, they got 113,998. So as you see the way I blended it, the calculation on the budget was 112,900. Everyone see that? Well, I didn't think about the people that are already on step 13. So if you look at the second calculation, you'll see in the orange, the first half of the year they got 113,413, and the second half of the year they got 113,998. So in actuality, they were going to get paid 113,706. Does everyone understand that? And the variance is $106. That's the $806, and that is the $805 that you see there. That was a mistake I made when I did the budget. You'll say, well, Bob, how do you figure that out? Well, what happened was I took the actual, compared it to my budget, and I saw all these 806s. And I said, what the heck is going on here? Why is this varying so many people? And then I started crossing things, and I said, oh, wow, I missed that. What I should have done is had two steps for that, and even though they were on the same step, I should have moved the people existing, yes. That was my mistake. And if you say to me, well, Bob, this is the first time you ever made a mistake on the budget, I'll tell you, this is the first time I looked to because we never overexpended our budget. But this really bothered me that we overexpended this, so, I did that. The next problem that I have, and this isn't for everyone, but for 243 calculations, as I will call it, you will see the first half of the year we had 13 steps. You see that? The second half of the year we had 14 steps. We added a step between 1 and 2. You see that? I moved most of the people 2 steps where I was supposed to. I have no idea why, but when I started looking at the steps, there was people 1 step behind what they should have been. So, when I looked at it, that's much more difficult because depending on what step you're moving from, they're all different numbers, but it's probably about $2,500 a person, and that's another $600,000.
I want to be very clear of something you're saying, which is people were paid the correct amount throughout the year.
Yes.
Everybody got the right number. We didn't overpay. We didn't underpay.
Correct.
This is simply as you're going to reconcile your gross mechanical assumptions were not, and that's why it came up. So because when you say I made a mistake, your mistake was an analysis mistake after the fact, not payment. Everyone got paid correctly.
Correct, yeah.
I misunderstood that. I thought the mistake was in your projection.
It was in the projection. Sorry, I said it wrong, but.
So yes, it's just the difference between projections and actual.
But
my mistake in the projections caused us to overspend.
Correct, but
this isn't because we put 10 more people in staff or anything like that. I mean, there's variances all over the place. But the big numbers that I'm finding is these 2 things cause us to have a variance. It's a small variance.
It is. But let's look at the high order. Let's look at this as the managers of the district. Everybody got paid correctly.
Yes.
Everybody got paid on time.
Yes.
We didn't violate any law. We didn't overspend or go beyond the budgetary amount that are limited. So this is, as an accountant, you're taking this hard, but as a businessman looking at a $230 some odd million budget, not
understood. I'm just making sure you guys understand that we don't go around and overspend on the budget. If the salaries would have been overexpended, I would have looked at it. So I don't even know what I would have found.
Salaries were overexpended, you under budgeted.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Anyway,
I think the clarification is important, what Jerry said. They wanted your comments, but we had 2,500 people that were behind in the step or something like that. And again, in your calculations, right, in your spreadsheet, for whatever reason, it catch up to all the employees on the page.
Yes. But you understand why it happened now. It's not just a mystery to people. And that was important to me because I'm uptight about
There's
that.
the root cause, and it's understandable. That's what it comes down to.
Well, I wanted to make sure you knew that I took it seriously. The other thing is, number of people that are different from my calculations, my budget calculations to where they ended up in the year was 160. I estimate that cost to be about $635,000. That's just everyone always asks me about how many people moved. That isn't everyone moving into the Masters 45. That's just people moving from column to column to column. Okay? Okay. Buildings and ground, well, this is all the 300 and 900s. That is good that it was underspent. Buildings and grounds underspent by 1.1 million. Special services, your contract and special services, $766,000. Student transportation, and we went over that quite in a lot of detail. Last year we overspent. This year we underspent by $451,000. Building budgets, that's really the money that buildings get to operate the classrooms, underspent by $344,000. Debt service is underspent by $95,000. And then fund transfers, it's the $3 million that we moved into the capital reserve and the $255,000 that we moved into food service. Okay? Okay?
Let's go.
Okay. Distribution of fund balance, and I know this I know Wendy and I went back and forth on this. I don't know that everyone, don't even look at the June 30, 2018 column right now. Right now, our financial statements that were last published, we had $24,086,000 of fund balance. $25,000 is non-spendable because we have inventories that we can't spend. Committed fund balance of $1.6 million in it for employer retirement stabilization. Educational priorities was $2,695,000. Self-insurance activity, we have $3.9 million. And the balance last year's budget was $4.2 million. That was all committed. And then the unassigned fund balance was $11.6 million. Up to the $24.086 million. Does everyone get that? Now we're going to look at 2018. And I did this, and I made assumptions, but I'm going to try to get you guys to say, yeah, do it this way. So let me explain what I've done. Our inventories went up to $31,000. We only have $21,392 amount of fund balance available. So the first thing I did is said, well, all the employer retirement stabilization is being used up. Okay. That would have been used up a couple of years ago, but we had positive things, so that was planned on. Educational priorities, we started with $2,695,000. Our net expenses in the 2017-18 year were $65,000, so I reduced that by $65,000. That's that calculation. Self-insurance, health insurance, that's the reserves in case we have a really bad year. I don't think anyone wants to move that. Our fund balance that we used to balance the 2018-19 budget is $4,091,000, if you remember back in the other slides. So, our board policy says we can take appropriations from the 18-19 year, which is $240 million now, and the maximum 5% would be $12,033,955 in unassigned fund balance. We don't have enough total fund balance to put all 5% in there, but we can put the $10,750,000, which is 4.47% of our appropriations. That's well within our board policy guidelines. We don't have a lot of movement here unless someone wants to tell me they want to reduce that or do something different here, but I think this is really where we should have our distribution of fund balance at the end of this year. And I would just have you guys vote on that and say, yep, that's where our fund balances are going to end. Is everyone okay with that? Does anyone have any feelings that maybe we should do something differently?
I think we're good.
Okay. That will be on this board meeting approval for you, and then also be the $3 million saying I can move it over to capital reserve, which we agreed on last month. And this is just identifying that. Go ahead. It's time for us to talk about Amazon and how it's being used in the district. Like many people, Amazon's a go-to place to get things, and more, our teachers, our staff is doing the same thing. Our purchasing department is a department that puts bids out, does paperwork, requisitions, POs, and things like that. But we don't have buyers here. So many of the purchase orders or requisitions are schools. If it's not been bid on or anything like that, the schools are going out and deciding how they want to purchase it and what vendors they're going to get and things such as that. Amazon, as you can see here, I'm showing you in 2014-15, we had 255 POs for that, about $52,000. Last year, it went up to 344 POs and $74,000. This year already, we're at $18,000. And people are buying books there now and everything else. It's cumbersome for us because what happens is right now Amazon has not allowed us to, they don't accept our POs, so what they do is, teachers or staff will go and they'll print something out from Amazon to put a requisition in, all approve the requisition. Our purchasing department then has to get the requisition, get what they want, they go to Amazon and they order it from Amazon. And by the way, we have a $15,000 limit. So if there's $15,000 up to that limit and we haven't paid it yet, then we can't do any more orders. So then orders sit there and wait for us to go, and it's just getting more and more people are buying this way. The pricing's good. They'll show me that the pricing's good and everything. So we recently contacted Amazon to talk to them, and they do have Amazon business, and they have been awarded a bid through U.S. Communities. And go to the next. They will establish an account with us. It's called Amazon Business. We will have our own web where people will get on, specifically for Council Rock. You'll order through the web, and there'll be a whole approval process that goes through that we approve at the end, and it'll go back out. And it's an integrated purchase order system that we would have that we could be able to go out and work with this. What's good for us? Exclusive pricing of more than 10 million items. There are 10 different selections of merchandise where we can say you can't buy this, but you can buy this, and things like that. So if we don't want them to buy, what's that? Folding chairs, we can say, no, you can't buy folding chairs. They have producers where there are 5 different companies that sell through them that will have a big pen. And we can buy the lowest priced big pen from them. So it's like a big process inside their organization. 3-day shipping of orders of $49 or more. If there's qualifying orders of $35 or $25 for books, we get free 5 to 8 day shipping. We're going down this way. I'm not stopping it. I won't be able to stop it. So I'm just trying to say, I think it might be time for us to try to put a business solution together. This allows us to meet the bid requirements according to Pennsylvania, and I will review that with Ralph Cox again too. But what I'm coming to you and say, I would like to get this structured and start to push out of this because it's happening anyway.
Two things. One, so in essence, any teacher, any staff member, basically runs a cart, if you will, and then you wind up going approval, and you wind up with their documentation approving the cart, which gets it purchased. It's as simple as.
Well, then our purchasing department gets on their Amazon website, and I will tell you they're buying books and things like that, and the books are out, so then we can't buy books. I mean, it's cumbersome for us right now.
No, in the new model, this is pretty much.
This is, I think they hold it for 7 days or something, like once it's in the cart, it's ours. So there's all these different things that I didn't want to bore you guys with, but it's going to make it better for us.
Structured like our current office.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the last one on it was, and this all operates under our tax-free code.
Yes. No.
Joe had a question.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you, we do Office Depot, you said too, Amazon, are there others like buying clubs or procurement companies that we basically, they can go out and bid and get you, like?
Well, we bid on our own, and then we do use TEPA, which is a statewide contract. There's a CoStar that's a statewide contract. The IU bid some of our items, we piggyback on. You see the mulch gets delivered and all that. That's an IU bid that we use. The IU bid.
A lot of that already.
Yes. But this is just where it's going, and I think we need to embrace it and make it easier for everybody, and maybe build better controls and make sure that we're getting the best price.
So what do you need from the board?
I need to talk to Rob Cox and make sure he puts it in the form if you guys approve it. And I'm not in a great hurry to get this out, but I want to get it out, and I wanted to show you this because I just met with them.
There's no change of policy, and there may be alter some administrative regs, but that's your.
If you remember when we did this with Office Depot, you guys approved Office Depot, we've been using Office Depot, so this is really the model.
Standing in front of this is like standing in front of a flood. You know, if you don't let it happen, it's gonna happen around.
Well, it's happening, and
That's my point.
if I ask them what vendor, they'll call me back and say, what vendor do you want me to use? And,
No sympathy.
Okay, so nothing, this isn't gonna be in front of us next week, this is for.
I need to talk to Rob,
Okay.
and I will tell you, I'm probably gonna share a lot with him. I'm not in a huge hurry for this, so it's not like, I'd like to get Cornerstone on there, that's my biggest thing.
I think the answer is, it doesn't need to be on next. If you talk to Rob, there's a simple contract that comes up. I don't think you have to come back here. I think that bring the contract forward whenever. Just make note of the date you presented it here.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, meeting adjourned.